humans may be one of evolution's strangest glitches. That's not just a provocative opinion, it reflects what paleontologists concluded in 2024 after studying a 4-million-year-old ankle bone discovered in Europe. The creature it belonged to was neither an ape nor a human. Instead, it was an unusual monkey, with a dog-like snout and prominent fangs. Yet, despite its appearance, the structure of its ankle is strikingly similar to modern humans. It had already risen and thrived long before human beings ever arrived. As paleontologists often note, in evolution's original storyline, humans were never meant to take center stage. Our place was more likely in the audience, observing as a different dominant species governed the planet. Yet, for reasons that remain unclear, that species vanished, and we became the unexpected replacement, stepping into the role no one had planned for us. We arrived on the scene almost by accident, and went on performing for millions of years, convinced that we were always the main act. Even more puzzling, no one can fully explain how that original star vanished from Earth. It is almost as though some force pressed an undo button 4 million years ago. Today, we are going to uncover this lost species, Paralithos. The story begins in 1903 at a quarry in southern France. When paleontologists first unearthed its fossil, the discovery attracted little real attention. At the time, researchers simply assumed it belonged to a relatively large monkey. That reaction is understandable. In that era, scientists had not yet figured out humanity's own origins, so a primate that had lived and died millions of years earlier seemed hardly worth serious notice. However, what followed soon forced the scientific world to pay close attention. Over time, scientists uncovered fossils of this ape in Greece, Romania, Tajikistan, and possibly even parts of China. These discoveries suggest that its habitat stretched across virtually the whole of Eurasia, from France in the west to East Asia in the east. What does that tell us? It indicates this was far from a minor or isolated species. Instead, it was a population that once spread across, and likely dominated an enormous portion of the known world. Even more striking, however, was its sheer size. This animal weighed close to 30 kilograms, roughly the size of a full-grown mandrill. It had a canine-like face, a jaw lined with sharp fangs, and powerfully built limbs that looked almost gym-trained. Coming across a creature like this in the wild would likely trigger one immediate reaction: this could be a very bad day. What truly captured paleontologists' attention, however, was not the creature's massive size, but the unusual design of its skeleton. In 2006, researchers uncovered an exceptionally well-preserved Paralithos skeleton on the Greek island of Lesvos. To study it in detail, scientists performed high-resolution CT scans on each individual bone, allowing them to examine its internal structure with remarkable precision. Using high-resolution CT imaging, researchers analyzed every bone in detail, and uncovered a surprising finding: its ankle bone was strikingly similar to that of Australopithecus, an early human ancestor. This detail is especially significant because Australopithecus is widely regarded as a direct ancestor of modern humans. One of the most well-known examples is Lucy, the remarkably preserved Australopithecus fossil that has played a major role in our understanding of human evolution. However, this ape-like relative does not belong to the human evolutionary line. It was simply a monkey. Even so, its ankle developed a structure strikingly similar to that of our early ancestors. The researchers reviewed the evidence repeatedly, and in the end, they arrived at a remarkable conclusion: this monkey most likely moved on 2 legs on a regular basis. Of course, one could argue that many monkeys can occasionally stand upright and take a few steps. What made it so remarkable? It was unlike anything else, entirely distinct. The talus of this upright walking ape, the most important bone in the ankle joint, had a form and alignment that appear to have been uniquely adapted through evolution. It was capable of supporting the entire body during bipedal walking, while also allowing the complete range of movement needed for dorsiflexion and plantarflexion. Put simply, it was not merely rising up from time to time to look around at the landscape. It was genuinely moving on 2 legs. Its fibula, the slender bone along the outer side of the lower leg, also appears to have carried far more body weight than it does in typical monkeys. Taken together, these anatomical traits strongly suggest a single conclusion: this species was exceptionally well adapted for upright Bipedal walking. In one experiment, scientists trained Japanese macaques to walk upright, on two legs over an extended period. Over time, the animal's ankle and leg bones gradually changed in structure, becoming more stable and better adapted to bipedal movement. However, the traits seen in the parallel ape's bones were not the result of this kind of training. They emerged through millions of years of evolution, millions of years spent moving across open landscapes, migrating in search of resources, and foraging for food. Over that vast span of time, standing upright likely helped them detect predators earlier and carry food more efficiently, long before human ancestors arrived in Eurasia. This parallel ape may have been the closest equivalent to a hominid anywhere in Europe. Strangely enough, it still retained a tail. And that detail matters. It suggests this parallel ape was not evolving along the same trajectory as humans. Instead, it appears to have followed a separate evolutionary logic, moving in a direction that is difficult for us to fully picture. In other words, it may have been heading toward an endpoint that, through convergent evolution, developed certain human-like traits, while remaining fundamentally distinct. Next up, is what makes this monkey especially striking is its arms. The humerus of Paralithos featured a pronounced groove, where the biceps muscle attached, while the elbow joint was broad and rounded. Together, these traits indicate exceptional upper body strength, and a highly flexible elbow. For a monkey of this size, that combination was remarkably uncommon. By examining the features of the ankles and arms together, scientists arrived at a striking hypothesis. The arms of these so-called parallel people may have been adapted, not just for movement, but for carrying and gripping objects. The implication is significant. Once a species stands upright and walks on two legs, it can see over tall grass more easily and cover long distances while using less energy. More importantly, it leaves your hands free. And what does that allow you to do? You can hold your child, carry food, and, when necessary, take up weapons. The ability to use tools and weapons was a crucial factor in setting human ancestors apart from other animals. Unlike lions with their sharp claws, or tigers with their long fangs, humans lacked natural offensive weapons. Instead, they relied on stones, wooden clubs, and pointed sticks to defend themselves and hunt. These advances enabled us to strike the vulnerable spots of both prey and predators, effectively giving humans a faster route along the evolutionary path. The parallel people may have been moving in a similar direction, although there is no direct proof that they made or used tools. Several indirect hints are worth considering. For example, macaques in Thailand have been observed using stones to break open shellfish and nuts. Different groups even display distinct traditions in how they use simple objects, pointing to a form of cultural transmission. In Africa, for example, vervet monkeys and baboons have been observed hurling stones or branches at predators and competing rivals. Although this can only be regarded as a very rudimentary form of tool and weapon use, it still offers an important clue. The challenge, however, is that these modern monkeys are not well adapted to walking upright. Their arms were not well adapted for handling tools while upright. By contrast, the parallel people seem to have had both advantages, making them fully capable of wielding simple weapons, if they actually relied on such tools. There may be little trace left for us to discover today. Most implements, especially those made of wood, decompose completely within just a few years, leaving almost no archaeological evidence behind. Even something as basic as a sharpened stick could have been enough to inflict deadly injuries on many animals. Stones did not even have to be shaped or refined. A simple rock picked up from the ground could already serve as a deadly weapon. Now, picture this. More than 3 million years ago in Europe, a group of dog-faced monkeys, each weighing around 30 kilograms, stood across the open grasslands, with sharpened wooden spears in their hands, watching their prey with clear intent. The scene feels more chilling than many horror films. More unsettling, still, they may even have encountered our early human ancestors in person. Homo erectus was among the first human species to migrate out of Africa, and the oldest known Homo erectus fossils, found in Eurasia, were discovered at Dmanisi, in present-day Georgia, dating to roughly 1.8 million years ago. Meanwhile, the so-called parallel people are believed to have lived between 5 million and 1 million years ago. So what exactly does that imply? This means that for roughly 1 million years, Homo erectus and the so-called parallel people occupied the same continent. A timespan of this magnitude was far more than a chance encounter, or a brief overlap in territory. It points to a prolonged period of coexistence. Over such an immense stretch of time, it is difficult to imagine that nothing took place between them. At some point during that era, as early humans in the form of Homo erectus moved across Eurasia, something changed. Suddenly, they came across a group of dog-faced, two-legged creatures, weighing around 60 pounds. In many ways, these beings resembled humans. They walked upright, on two legs, yet they also had sharp fangs, and may even have used simple weapons. Under those conditions, peaceful coexistence seems uncertain. Even today, the Hadza people are known to hunt baboons. Given that comparison, it is reasonable to ask whether Homo erectus might also have hunted the young of these so-called parallel men. On the other hand, did these neighboring human groups, when no one was watching, seize children who wandered too far from the safety of the fire? We may never know for certain. What is clear, however, is that moments like this must have occurred. The true prehistoric world was far stranger than anything Hollywood has ever portrayed, and far harsher as well. Which leads to an important question. Given how successful the parallel men appeared to be, an obvious question follows. Why did they ultimately vanish? While our lineage survived, there is no definitive answer. During the Pliocene and early Pleistocene, Eurasia was home to an extraordinary abundance of giant animals. Vast grasslands and dense forests were dominated by powerful apex predators, and the parallel men existed in the midst of this dangerous world, depending largely on their physical size to endure. Strength and intelligence allowed them to stand firm in this fiercely competitive environment. They managed to endure for nearly 4 million years. To put that time span into perspective, the whole history of modern humans, from the emergence of Homo sapiens to the present, covers only about 300,000 years. In other words, these parallel humans existed for more than 13 times the length of recorded human existence. And finally simply disappeared without warning, leaving no legends behind, no cave paintings, no stone tools, no clear trace of who they were. It is as if some force had wiped them entirely from Earth's memory. But the fossil record has never been a complete history book. It is closer to a broken mirror, reflecting only scattered pieces of the past. What we see are fragments, small clues to stories that have largely been lost to time. And yet, even those fragments remind us the book of life contains countless remarkable chapters that were lost before we ever had the chance to read them. The story of these parallel human lineages reveals a powerful truth. The course of human evolution was never limited to a single route. Standing upright, making tools and developing intelligence were not one-time miracles unique to us. Rather, they were practical strategies for survival, solutions that different human relatives may have reached under similar pressures in a changing world. When the environment creates the right pressures, similar traits can emerge again and again, in entirely different species. The parallel man is a clear example of this pattern. Although their lineage split from ours, and followed a very different evolutionary route, they still developed features remarkably close to our own. If our ancestors had vanished in that distant era, instead of theirs, the dominant species on Earth today, they may have looked like a group of upright, monkey-like creatures with faces resembling dogs. Human evolution is often presented as an inevitable journey, as though our species was always meant to rise to the top of the food chain. In reality, evolution has no fixed goal or grand design. It works through endless trial and error, with only certain forms managing to survive long enough to continue. One such branch, the so-called parallel man, has now been almost entirely erased from popular memory. He left no myths in his wake, no artworks, and no finely crafted stone implements. Yet, over an almost unimaginable span of time, he remained one of the most successful primates ever to live on Earth. Many of his traits were remarkably close to our own, bringing him to the very edge of becoming human. He was not us, but he might have been, and that leaves me wondering how many other human stories almost came into existence. How many possible versions of our species disappeared before they ever had the chance to begin. Perhaps somewhere in a parallel universe, it was another branch of humanity that endured, while we are merely the unrealized possibility, the path that was never taken.